You're listening to the Life of Lozo podcast.
We are live here at Life of Lozo.
He is the funniest, smartest, sexiest guy I know.
Lozo is now live.
Yo, on this episode, I present part 2 of the Lozo pre-book launch Facebook Live broadcast featuring Chris Stark and Christian Abrahamson. Thank you to everyone who has purchased an ebook, physical copy, or audiobook so far. For more info, visit visionclaritysupport.com. Thank you to our sponsors, Station Studios, The Taylor Shop, Inc., 03 Productions, A. Charles Photos, The Big Paid, Ron Designs Clothing, Ronz Work Guitars, The Music Experience, Custom Shirts, and more, The Art of Kyle Willis, and of course, Jack's Nutrition. Part 2, let's go.
Awesome. Well, we have a bunch more people popped on here. That popped on here. So we have Cheryl. Thank you for popping on, Cheryl. We've got Jared. Thanks for popping on. Lance says, if people don't talk to you, then they feel you haven't listened before. Ooh, listening. So let's talk just briefly about listening. Something that I know. What I'll give you $5, Chris, if you can tell me what episode that is from Hacking Your Leadership around active listening. Do you remember?
Hey. Around active listening.
Yeah.
What number the episode was? Oh. Yeah, we have 70 now. I don't know.
Episode 8.
Yeah.
How do you know that?
I listened.
He wasn't right. He was. Come on.
The numbers?
Come on.
Life of Lozo, right? Yeah. What we should do? Here's what we have to do, Chris. When we officially launch this as Hacking Your Leadership Live.
Yeah, he's wrong. Number 8 is leading your former peers. So.
Oh, come on.
I just looked.
Yeah. we need to have every episode up with every title, and so when we get certain questions, we'll just refer back to the episode. Hey, go check out episode 32.
Yeah, but it's number 62. Number 62 is about active listening and framing.
Okay, I was close, Chris.
Yeah, 862. Yeah, exactly.
So all right. So Chris, give us a pseudo 1-minute hack on the importance of active listening and framing.
Did you say me or him?
You.
Oh, me. Oh,
yeah.
So I'll put it in the context of the question or the statement of if people aren't listening to you, it's because you haven't, or people aren't talking to you, it's because you haven't listened before. I think there are a lot of people out there who don't know how to show their employees that they're listening and that they are not going to do what they've been asked to do. Because to just give a real simple, stupid example, an employee comes to you and says, I want more money. I want $10,000 more a year. And the manager says, nicely and apologetically, I can't do that. Then the employee leaves saying he's not listening to me. He's not hearing me. Well, no, that doesn't necessarily mean that. And there are leaders out there who I think they think that listening equals doing exactly what I was asked to do. And when to me, listening to someone is making sure that you are empathizing with them and that you're showing them that you're able to walk in their shoes. And what framing has to do with is basically just repeating what they're saying back to you in a way that shows that you're listening to what they're saying. And a lot of times they don't say what they actually mean. And hearing it back to them out of your mouth, even if it's word for word what they just said, I've done that and gotten the response of, actually, no, that's not what I mean. Okay, well, in my head, I'm thinking, that's exactly what you just said to me. I repeated it back word for word. And I think a lot of people, they almost chicken out. They want to say something, but the way they want to say it, they don't have the guts to say it, so they say it a different way, and it doesn't actually get their point across. So by repeating it back to them, by framing it back to them, what you're saying is, I'm ready to help you tackle this problem, and this is how I'm hearing it. And now that's their moment to say, actually, no, you're not hearing this correctly because I didn't say it correctly. What I really mean is this. And I think listeners who do that well, they don't have to necessarily go follow through with what it is or do what they've been asked to do, whether it's I want more money or I want to have Sundays off or I want to, whatever the request is, or I don't have the resources to do this work. Make sure the employee knows that you understand where they're coming from. The whole, Bill Clinton, I feel your pain thing. That's a real thing. You need to feel the employee's pain. Show them that you feel it. And then say, if you can't do it, ground why you can't do it in actual reasons, not and don't give away your power either. Don't say, I would love to do this, but my boss isn't letting me. Because what that tells them is, okay, my next request, I'm just going to go right to your boss because obviously you're not worth talking to here. You need to ground it in the actual facts. Even if that fact is, I honestly don't want to do that right now. I don't see the value in doing that right now. This is what you want it for. I understand why you want this, but this is the collateral damage of doing things that way and why I'm not going to do it. Don't put your friendship with the employee above the actual work that has to get done, but don't let that also stop you from making sure that you're empathizing with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. And like I said, check out episode 62 of Hacking Your Leadership for more insight and conversation. That's good stuff. Let's see here. We've got Cheryl says, Lorenzo, I'd love to chat with you sometime about conversational intelligence.
Capitalization of conversational intelligence implies that's a thing. That's like a coined term. And if it is,
no, I think it's a book. It's a book by Judith, I think Glaser, like Glaser, I believe. Mm-hmm. But it's about in a quick summation. It's the idea of like around building trust and conversation and being able to find mutual success and things like that. Like I believe that's what she's referencing. You're right. Like I think that's the title of the book, if I remember correctly. Sure. But absolutely, Cheryl, we'd love to talk about that and talk about those theories. And you're spot on. Like that whole idea is it's not about how smart you are. It's really about how good are you at connecting with people, building trust, conversing with people, and things like that. Yep, she says yes. That's what she's referring to. But she's spot on. Like it's always the people business. Like we say that all the time. It's always the people business, and your ability to be able to connect with people and build trust with them, and not try to outsmart them is the thing that will build everlasting and maintaining strength of a team and results. Absolutely. Let's see here. Tyler says, I keep all of my sergeants and officers at the same level. I treat them as assets, not subordinates. I give them all the same knowledge and treat them all fair. This has helped me in a paramilitary structured environment. So there you go. Right. Let me ask you this, because
talk about turning the model on its head.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say that.
In that environment.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. So like, let's unpack that for a second here. So think about military and the idea of military, and this kind of thought around treating them at the same level and as assets, and giving them all the same knowledge. What are your thoughts on that? Christian, you want to go first?
I think it's hard. I think military, the structure of military is one that the reason why they don't put a lot of emphasis on leadership at lower levels is because you follow because you're told to follow, and they set it up in such a way where you don't really have to influence much at the lower levels in order to get things done. People are going to do it because you've told them to, because there are consequences for not doing it. One of the downfalls of that is that I don't think it sets up former military members to enter the private and public sector workforce like they could. I think it sets them up for failure. But also, I'm wondering how Stephen is able to do that in the face of probably peers and people above him that don't do it that way. Because it's definitely not that way of leadership is not ubiquitous in the military at all. It's very uncommon. Yeah,
that's Tyler Stevenson. Name was backwards, but yes.
Oh,
he said Steven. Sorry. That's okay. But yeah, but I would completely agree. I think from a military standpoint, it is such a top-down structure, and when it comes to rank, and when it comes to respect, and when it comes to who give commands and that type of thing, mm-hmm. I think there's parts of it that require that you have to have that for, I think, the safety of the larger organization. If I had to guess in context, it's probably what he was speaking to is just the approach to how he talks to people and how he shows respect and how he asks things to get done, and kind of that element around approachability and whatnot is probably what he's probably referring to. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I think Tyler. I think in that world, I mean, I've never been in the military. One of my mentors is a colonel, and he leads very, very much so like Tyler. He doesn't pull much ranks or anything like that. And he shares a lot. I think some of those leaders in the military probably take it to the extreme when not sharing with their team. And I think what Tyler is saying, that he shares everything, that really doesn't make a huge difference, but it makes their team feel like they're involved. But he still has his plan that he's effectively doing without the team knowing, right? He still has to be a leader. But I think it can work. And like I said, I know firsthand, one of my mentors, it's a full-blown colonel, and I've seen him chat with a entry-level guy, introduce himself as Barry, and it's not until later on the kid asked him, "Are you military?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm a colonel." And this guy salutes him, and he perks up. He goes, "Eddie's like, it's all good," but he shares stories where he would go out on the patrols with his team and things like that, which those guys don't have to.
Right.
Once you reach a certain level, you're not patrolling with your infantry team, but that definitely gets a lot of respect. Where if you have somebody high up doing the same thing as the regular ranks, that brings a certain level of respect. And I'm sure when he needs to flex his muscles, it's effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's, again, it is. I mean, in all levels of leadership and all levels of business, and we've talked about this before as well on the podcast, is like leadership is really an assignment of responsibility, right? Like when you have to have those titles, you have to have those things that allow people to know who is responsible for what and who is accountable for what. Like that's really what that is about. It's not a matter of, it's not a matter of having the title, and it's like the line from Happy Gilmore, right, with Ben Stiller. Read the name tag, Grandma. You're in my world now, right? When he's back there, it's like, if you ever have to say the words, well, because I'm the boss or because I'm the manager, if you ever have to say those words, clearly there's a disconnected relationship. Clearly there's a disconnect in trust and understanding. You should never have to leverage your title to be able to get people to go do something. You know what I mean? Like, you should not have to do that. Not in the elements of day-to-day, trying to empower people to get a job done. If from an accountability standpoint, from a integrity standpoint, from a business conduct, or in the military, a life and death standpoint, absolutely. There are times when it's like, this is going to stop immediately because I said so, right? Like those things have to happen. But I mean, in the natural flow of business, for the most part, I think that's when you have to borrow the authority of a name tag. Then what type of environment and culture are you building?
Well, I think it goes back to the Simon Sinek Start With Why, and he speaks about it from the concept of an organization has to have its why. On a macro level, that's true, but when you're talking about what motivates people to follow you or do what you're saying as a leader, they have to be bought into the why behind what you're asking them to do, whatever that is. And when you say read the name tag or some form of that, what you're in essence saying is either, I don't know what the why is. I really don't know why I need you to do this, or I don't know how to articulate it, or I don't value our relationship enough to take the time to tell you, or any one of the another reasons why you're not starting with, this is why I need to get it done. And you've resorted to saying, read the name tag. Mm-hmm. And the in my entire career, I've resorted to the read the name tag strategy one time, and it was a conscious decision that came after writing off the relationship that I knew was not going to be resolved after that, and that we were in the process of eliminating the person. Like, it was done. Like, we were, in my mind, I said, there's been enough chances, there's been enough stuff, this is not happening anymore, and now I'm trying to minimize the damage that this person can do before I get my ducks in a row to have them not in the building anymore. And that's all it was.
Yep, that's awesome. So two things real quick. If you're watching the show now, and if you have a webcam and you want to hop on, click the link in the on the Facebook page there, and you can hop in a seat on Be Live, and we'll bring you right into the show. And thank you guys for tuning in. We've had a lot of viewers all night, a lot of reactions, a lot of comments. Another question. Here we go. And these are good long questions. They're so good and long that they're blocking out our faces sometimes, and I have to change the view of the video because there's 3 of us on camera. But we will pop on to the next one right here. And this one is from Chuck, a.k.a. Charles, a.k.a. Doug. Any advice for folks that are doing well in non-leadership roles and are being asked by leaders to think about taking on a leadership role in the future, but don't know if it is the right choice?
Sure.
Go.
Yeah. Give me whatever I can off of your plate. If this is the leadership role, give me some items that this person has to do. I want to know what living the life of this person is like. I'm not looking for extra money. I'm not looking for, just give me this stuff to do, and I'll do it. And I'll see if it sits well with me. I'll see if it's something that I could find passion around doing. There are leadership roles that the idea of it sounded amazing to me. More money, more responsibility. And then I was given the actual role to do, and I went, what did I get myself into? Not from a standpoint of I can't do this, but from a standpoint of, will I enjoy getting out of bed to do this every day for the foreseeable future? And so that's what you're really trying to solve there is the whatever passion you have around the job you're doing now, whatever drives you to do well in that job, will you be able to take that same passion? And one of the biggest ways where those passions get lost is in transitions from roles where you're doing X to a role where you're leading people who are doing X. And what happens when leaders get into those situations is when you can tell they're not going to be successful because they try to do X anyway. They try to, you get a person who's a store leader and is doing the work every day, and they want to get to that regional manager or district manager promotion. And what do? They spend one day in each of the stores they inherited as a leader trying to do the work of the store leader in each one of those stores, and they burn themselves out. So that person obviously didn't find passion in leading store leaders. They found passion in leading a store. And so you have to figure out if the responsibilities you're going to give up, the trade-off between those and the ones you're going to take on is worth it from your own personal sense of satisfaction and stamina with the job.
Yeah. Christian, what are your thoughts on this? So should he do this? Is this the right choice? If he's thinking about it and he's got people in leadership roles right now that are talking to him about taking one in the future?
Yeah. So you know what? I think two things. If the opportunity to learn more is there, learn as much as possible, no matter what. Mm-hmm. But the question that comes to mind every single time, because I've seen this happen, is, one, do you enjoy being a leader? Mm-hmm. Some people just rather not. They just rather not have that. And then, like Chris says, in the organization that you're in, that you're being pushed to, is that going to be a position you're going to enjoy? But I've met a lot of people that just can care less to get promoted. Mm-hmm. They just don't. They rather do their own thing. They rather ride solo. They're extremely intelligent, but they're not people person. That they speak very little. They do a great job. They work hard, and I see a lot of companies that promote for those reasons. Like when you promote your top sales professional because they did great to be a manager, and they're terrible managers. It's not their fault. It's just they never wanted to be a manager. You just promoted them based on their performance. So I think it's important that first you enjoy, and that is one of your goals, is to be a leader, regardless of the organization. And if the answer is yes, are you going to enjoy being a leader in that organization you're currently in? In the meanwhile, learn everything they're giving you, because the more you're worth, the more you can ask for when the time comes. And, they might offer something at the beginning, you turn it down, and then play that game a little because you've learned so much. So I think there's a lot of value that you can build in yourself by learning more as they give it to you.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I would add that it's good when other leaders are asking you to consider leadership role. But I think to your point, Christian, you've got to want that for yourself. right? Like it could be tempting to take a job. It could be tempting to take more money. It could be tempting to say like, well, I guess this is just how it is. Like, I do this job well and people want me to do this other job. So I just go ahead and take this job. And while you'll probably never be ready for all of that responsibility because you have to learn through experience, you have to know in your heart of hearts that this is what you want to do. If you're not willing to want to do that work, or you're second guessing it, then every little hurdle, every little mistake, every little bit of feedback, every time you do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing, you're going to beat yourself up for it, and you're going to second guess yourself, and that's just not a good space to be in. I love the point about you have to want to be a leader on this team with this organization, because if you don't see yourself in that, it can be a really, really tough road. So Roy, hey, what's up, Roy? How's it going, man? Roy and April have popped on. They are watching now. Welcome to the show. Thank you for you guys for popping on. Christian, April says that you just described her in that. And she also said, I inherited a management role, except that no one ever led me when I got that role, as we were just talking about, right?
Not uncommon, yeah.
Not uncommon at all. So awesome. We have, well, you guys, welcome to the show. And I know you didn't hear me, give you guys some bragging a little bit earlier on in regards to some of the net friending work and the things that you've done to help shape some of my messaging around the book that's coming out tomorrow. But again, April and Roy, thank you guys for welcoming me into the net friending world, and same with Chris here. And I'm sure very soon in the future you'll also be talking to Mr. Christian here, because he's
April with the 2.0.
See,
good for you, April.
We got watchers. Uh-oh, watch out now. No, that's awesome. And thank you guys for popping on here and supporting this. This ended up being, I just wanted to come on and talk about the book, and I was excited about it and wanted to share with a lot of people. And Christian popped on, and this kind of turned into a Hacking Your Leadership live event talking about leadership. And we've got more questions and comments. So Kim, what's up? Kim from Michigan. What's up, girl? Consider time. Sometimes leadership positions take away from family, home, time without paying out. Education is an excellent example. I've also had this experience in retail. So let me ask about that. Let me ask about considering time and family, home time, and making these types of decisions. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
That's typically, I think when you're giving a leadership role, if you're just taking over a leadership role, it takes a lot of time away from family and home, because they're doing away with a bad leader. So you're inheriting a bad team typically, or a bad situation. Mm-hmm. So I think you go ahead and you're going to lose some time up front, but done correctly, and if you build the right team and be that great leader, you'll get that time back with the benefits. Mm-hmm. So you should never, if you're a leader in your time at home and family is not increasing, then there's a problem somewhere. There's something that we got to look into and fix, and that could be either your style of leadership, it could be the organization. It's not supporting your style of leadership. Mm-hmm. But a good leader should be able to get to the point where they're balancing that home time with their family. And again, later on, you have to work towards it because typically you're walking into a bad situation where they fired the previous leader or so.
Yeah. Chris?
About 3 or 4 days ago, I asked you anecdotally how much time you spend on the floor of your store versus how much time you spend off the floor. And you very unequivocally said 95% not on the floor. Mm-hmm. And that was surprising me. I knew it would be more than half. I didn't know it would be 95%. And so that's the context of my answer to the question that came up. And that's that if a lot of leaders, they think that they have to prove that they are one of the team by doing the work that the team is doing instead of doing the work of the leader. So you have a leader who they should be spending their time leading people. They should be spending their time in one-on-ones with people, developing people, training people, helping people get better in the roles they're doing. But they spend, if they have a 40 or 50 hour a week job, they spend 30 or 40 hours of that job doing the work that their people should be doing. And part of it is from a standpoint of that they feel like they don't have a talented enough staff at the time. Maybe they did inherit a team that isn't up to par, and they don't have a staff that's talented enough to do this work, so they feel like they have to do it in the interim. And if they approach it from that standpoint, they're always going to be doing that work in the interim. There's not going to be any more interim. That's going to be their life, because they haven't taken the time to go in and say, the changes have to happen. There needs to be more training. There needs to be more work on development. My role as a leader is to do that. And if you're brought into a team that is really failing from that standpoint, as the leader, the first thing I would do is I'd sit down the person who promoted me, and I'm going to say, I just want to let you know, for the first quarter that I'm in this role, don't even bother looking at any numbers or any scorecard, because they're going to go down. The reason why your team is failing right now is because the leader was not being a leader. They were doing the role instead of being the role of the leader. So if I come in there, the first thing I'm going to do is start from the basics on a training and development standpoint. So I'm not going to be doing the work itself. I'm going to be leading the team. And when you're leading a team of people who don't have the skills to start out with, they're not going to be able to do the job. And the numbers, whatever that scorecard is they're looking at, is going to go back. But they have to be confident, and you have to be confident in saying, I need this, whatever the time is, you figure it out, because you only 30 days, 60 days, 90, whatever that is, and talk to your leader about that and say, I need you to understand that I need this leeway to get this done, because if you're expecting the results to happen on day one, the only way to make that happen is for me to do them myself. And if I do them myself, I'm not spending the time fixing this team.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
I'll say something, Lorenzo, because for those who don't know, he spends 95% of the time not on the floor, but 75% of the time investing in his people.
Right.
So it's the reward that you get, if you want to call it that. Yeah, I don't know what the right word would be. Roy would know if he's still listening.
Yeah.
But you invest in your people, and in return, you get a successful environment that allows you to have that quality of life.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of quality of life, Lance says that weekends are overrated, movie prices are higher, no lunch specials, and everybody else is off and everything is crowded. Yeah.
Right. That just means I don't want to be in the movie theater or anywhere where there's a crowd. I still would like to be home with my family.
Exactly. Right. Well, but he brings up a great point that we've talked a lot about, which is this idea of work-life balance, and really it being about like work-life style. That there's no such thing as balance, because it's just like I hear that term a lot, and it perks my ears up, because if you're doing the work that you love and you're engaged and you're enjoying that work, then it's just a part of who you are and what you do. And I completely understand that there are a lot of people out there that don't do a job they love. They do a job because they maybe have a natural skill for it, an education for it. They have to pay their bills. They have responsibility. I get all of that. I understand that. And I think that's where that mentality gets stuck in heads is, well, then you got to have work-life balance. I have to have the time away from this place to be able to recharge, to enjoy myself and all that, because when I come here, I then have to like put myself in this mode and do this type of job. But this day and age, there are so many companies out there. There are so many organizations out there that want great, hardworking talent that bring value to the organization. There's so many options out there for so many people that if you could just get stuck in the hamster wheel of, well, I'm here, so I'm going to stay here. It's too hard to leave. Well, what if I don't know the company? What if I have to meet new people? What if I don't have the like if you spend the time in your head to convince yourself not to go out there and try something else, then you only have yourself to blame for creating the environment where you have to think about work-life balance. If you find, even if it's exactly the same job, but what Christian said earlier, it's an organization and leaders and people that you appreciate, that appreciate you. That shift alone of doing exactly the same work, but in a culture that believes in you and supports you, that can change your entire life. And then it truly becomes work-life style, where you're not feeling this drag of, oh my God, can I just get to Friday so I can be away from these people for 2 full days? You know, but that's something that I know Christian talks a lot about in regards to, like, you know, it's got to equal your end game. If your end, whatever your end game is, if you're not working towards your end game, then what are you doing right now?
Yeah. Here's the kicker too about work-life balance, is that 9 times out of 10, people don't know what that means. Because when I start working with a new account, with new business owners, you know, with people, and ask them what their personal goals are, they have no idea. They don't have any personal goals. Well, if you don't have any personal goals, how do you know what your life, you know, your balance is? And it's always a kicker. So, oh, great work-life balance. I'm like, but what does that mean? You know, like, you don't. You're just working. You don't have any goals. You don't have anything that you're working towards. So you don't have the life part. You know, like, let's figure out where your life part is first, and then we'll work on this, you know, work life balance that you're speaking of.
Work-life style.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So Roy says, go where you are celebrated and not just tolerated. I like that. Let me ask the spin. Is this also go where you can celebrate and not just tolerate? Right? Because I think that it's also it's something that Chris, you and I have talked about before. Is the quote from one of our shared mentors in Gil, right? And his quote is, "You deserve the leadership
you tolerate."
You tolerate. Right?
Yep.
Whatever you're willing to put up with is what you're willing to put up with. And
it's incredible to listen to people get offended by that line and start to explain away, like, I don't know their circumstance. Like, you don't know. No. If you knew what I had to deal with, you'd understand why I have to put up with this. It's like, nope. Nope. Leave. If it's that bad, leave.
Yep. Yeah. What you tolerate, you will not change. That's correct.
That's right.
100%.
Right. If it's brand new to you, there is nobility in trying to change it. Absolutely. But if you've come to the realization that you can't change it, then you deserve the leadership you tolerate. Then leave.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as I was just saying, the opportunities that are out there and the organizations and all the places that you can go and take your skill set to where you can be appreciated and to where you can find these types of cultures, it's critical to just, you know, having the opportunity to enjoy work and then also enjoy being at home, and break out of these chains of this old adage of, like, oh, the 9 to 5, the job. There's just too many places out there where great, talented people that have a passion to do good work can find good work and get paid for it.
Yeah, but here's the kicker. The kicker is that most people don't have the guts to go and get that change. Like, they're really good. They complain. They because I agree. You know, that's why recruiting is so hard, because there's a shortage of good, sharp people. A lot of times people don't know their worth, or they're just scared. You know, they know they're better and they know they can do good, but they just won't go for it. And you're like, what are you waiting on? You know?
Right. And there's keep in mind too, easy and worth it are not synonymous. You know, speaking about it matter of factly, like, you deserve leadership you tolerate. Great. You make it sound like it's so easy. No, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's worth it. That's all. You know, it's worth it. You go if you can't change it and you leave and you go somewhere else, you will be happy you did.
Absolutely. Well, we're at book launch tomorrow. That's why we started the show. And I'm super excited.
Yeah, you're a terrible marketer, man. You talked about it for 5 minutes that we've been going into leadership.
Anybody
who's gone for the last hour and a half doesn't even know you have a book.
I get pulled in so easy. You guys know this about me, man.
Monday.
I just want to talk leadership.
Launching.
Right. I just want to talk leadership. No, we're at 85 comments right now, and we've had a steady stream of viewers and people on the show. So I don't want us to stop until we get to 100 comments. That's the goal that I have in my head. So everybody that's still watching,
real comments. Don't just start typing crud. Like actually.
Yeah. Don't say 86, 87, 88. You bunch of trolls. I want questions. I want questions about leadership. Questions about leadership. Keep them coming in. And again, thank you to everybody that's popped on, and even recently. What's up, Rex? What's up, Jennifer? What's up, Michael? What's up, Sean? What's up, Steven Sheldon? Jay Harvey, Matt. Matt popped on. Your boy Matt Christian popped on. Aunt Katie, Alba, Debbie, Courtney, Michael Martin, Tyler, Patrick, Jamie, Jeffrey, Sheila, Adriana, Ryan, Justin, Dale, Courtney, Kimberly. There's a lot of it's been fantastic. Dale, we're gonna keep going, brother, but we need more questions. So by all means,
sound like you were singing an LL Cool J song there for a second. Listen off the women's names. They were
Just flowing.
Yeah, it's just flowing, right? That's what happens, right? And which LL Cool J song for 10 points?
Around the Way?
Yes.
Nice.
Look at you. Man, he's got his all right, so here we go. So here's a question. Thank you, Mom, for bailing us out.
Mama Lozo.
Exactly. Right. So how about a few tips regarding episode 64, influencing people who do not report to you? Oh, my favorite, influencing without authority. How do you do it? And we'll start with Mr. Stark.
No, you can go. I feel like I've been talking too much. This is your thing, man. You go. I got plenty to add, so you go first.
I'm in Hacking Your Leadership podcast mode right now. That's what we do. This feels like the Life of Lozo podcast that inspired Hacking Your Leadership, which was just us reading questions back and forth and answering them. All right, so influencing without authority. Advice, a few tips. It's all about relationships. I can tell you the first thing that I would suggest is not just go. You can't fake it. You cannot fake trying to get to know somebody or build a relationship based on the fact that you need them to do something. You have to do things and expect nothing in return. So you have to show up as the best version of yourself. You have to be somebody who works in service of your team, in service of your peers, in service of your organization. You have to lead by example, and you have to be the one who is willing to give your time, because time is a gift, to anybody who needs it, to help them with whatever they're trying to accomplish personally or professionally. So if before you can ask anybody who you do not have authority over to do anything for you, then you have to know enough that you have to do things for them, and you have to be conscious of that. And it has to be genuine and real. If you're not willing to give somebody your time, attention, if you're not willing to pour into them when you feel that they need it, if you're not willing to provide them with help when it's not asked for, then you should never expect to be able to influence people without the title. You know, that's the first tips that I would tell you. One of the ways that you can do that the quickest, and the thing that builds relationships, and we talked about this on a podcast a couple episodes ago, is start with recognition. Right? When you see people do something good, whether it's your job, whether it's something that you're not even a part of, that you don't have any authority in, that's not a part of your team. When you see somebody that you don't know doing something and they're doing a good job at it, give them recognition and just do that.
To their boss.
To their boss. To them and to their boss, right? Be thankful, be grateful when you see people do good work. But when you see, if I saw Chris do something and I was like, man, he did a really good job at that, and nobody was looking but me, or I saw something that he put out, it was an email or it was a this or it was a that, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was relevant. I thought it provided context or content or information, whatever that is. Give that recognition to Chris, but also give it to Chris's boss and say, hey, I don't know Chris at all, but I saw this the other day and I thought he did really good. And I wanted to tell you that because somebody that's from the outside looking in, I thought he did great work. And if you would share that with him, I would be grateful. right? That's something that you can do that will quickly, start to build relationships in a positive and a correct manner, to then be able to, at some point in the future, have a relationship with somebody where they will do things that you ask or that you request, or they will reciprocate what you did for them to you when they see that you're struggling with something, that you need help with something. So that's kind of my speaking points on beginning to influence without authority.
It is definitely the long game, though. You can't start from the standpoint of, okay, I need this person to do something for me. Let me figure out what I can do for them. Mm-hmm. You start these relationships and you start this process before you need anything from these people. You start at the beginning when it's like, all right, I need to build up my bullpen. I need to build up the roster of people who I know will be there for me when I inevitably need something, because it will happen. You don't know when, you don't know who's the best person for the job, who you're going to have to call on. So the only solution is to make sure that anybody you interact with has nothing but great thoughts in their mind about you. And that if they get the ask one day, which they may never get, but they may get the ask, that the only response they're going to think is, of course, that guy's great. And why wouldn't I say no to that? So it's the long game. You start at day one so that when the time comes, you can call upon it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The one word that comes to mind is action. When you literally take action, whatever that means, help out, follow through with something. Sometimes it's amazing how typically something very small that has been ignored for so long, and it's simple to do. It could be somebody getting paper clips that they've had it on order for 3 months, and all of a sudden you show up with a box of paper clip and be like, I got you. Like action. There's too many leaders talking and not taking action and following through. And it's simple, it's just that simple.
Yep. Elimination of people's pain points.
Yep. Very cool. All right. We are well on our way to 100. The watchers have shown up and they are asking questions. Real quick question. Dale, when next MMA in Orlando? Dale, I know there's one in Jacksonville coming up soon. I don't remember what the Orlando date is, Dale, but I will get it out there for you for the next combat night in Orlando, I promise. Question from Lance. So when you have a high potential employee, but senior leadership thinks they are a lost cause, how do you change the perception?
Anybody who thinks they're a lost cause is a terrible relationship with them. That's why. That's why they're a lost cause, because I don't like them. That's why.
Right. So let's say that that's the case, though, because I've seen this happen. I've seen this happen where I've walked into teams and things like that where somebody says, "Oh my God, you're going to have to deal with this person," and then I meet that person and I'm like, "What's there to deal with?" Right? Yeah, like I don't see that, right? So if there's clearly history there's clearly a reason why somebody has that feeling about that person. So what do you do in that instance to try to help them? How do you navigate those waters?
Well, the first thing I would do is ask my leader, the person who just told me this person's a lost cause. I want to find clarity between myself and my leader on where the decision lies as to whether or not to keep them. So if they're telling me, if they're pulling rank and saying, I'm telling you one of your first orders of business is to get rid of this person, and I don't have an option in that, then it's a moot point. That's unlikely the case, though. Typically what they're trying to do is influence you to do a certain thing or to get you to think a certain way about a person because they want you to go in and agree with them. So if you get clarity that at the end of the day, it's still your decision whether or not to keep this person on your team, then now you can go forward and start building a relationship with that person. So if you have to get rid of them, it's on your terms. You can say, yeah, they really were a lost cause, but I found that out through my own research, not by reading your novel on it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Christian, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think if you identify that person as having high potential and they just have to prove it to the senior leadership, I think it's a great opportunity for you to become a good coach to that person, because there's times that people just need coaching, because they're rough around the edges. They're depending on your organization, that there are certain ways and things that you do that if you aren't doing, you're considered to be a bad employee. So if somebody's it's bad, then it's bad. You identify that and you move on very quickly. I'm not one to keep somebody on that needs to go. But if there's somebody who's extremely sharp and has a lot of potential, but the senior management doesn't see it, then it's my job to coach that person, right? To change that perception from seniors. And that's a great challenge to have and something you can be proud of once they get that promotion, I think.
Yeah, I have run into this a few times where based on past relationships and or how somebody showed up and or conversations that they've had or results that they haven't driven, where there is a perception that needs to be managed, right? And so for me, number one is taking the time to sit down with that person beyond just the surface, right? Beyond just the, wow, I met them and they seem good. They said all the right things, all that, but to actually sit down and have a conversation around so let's talk a little bit more about this. Like, let's talk about how do you feel that you're perceived in the organization, right? How, what are your relationships like with others that are here? Like really hearing from the person themselves. Are they self-aware? Do they know that there's a rub there? Do they know that there's maybe a bad relationship, or are they completely clueless? Because if they're clueless, it's almost not fair to them. They don't even understand that it exists. Therefore, how can you fix it if you don't know that it's broken? Right. So I think the first thing is really spending time with them to see, is there something there? Do they go, well, yeah, I've had my ups and I've had my downs. And there's been times when I've gotten feedback and I haven't done, and then you go, okay, there's something there. Then you can walk down a path. I talk about, Polaroid pictures versus 4K television, right? And in this day and age, when it comes to this generation, they can relate a little bit to snapshots versus the feature film. And I say, look, when I'm a leader of a team and I'm your direct leader or you're a part of my larger team, I get to watch your growth and development in real time as a full feature action movie. I see all the mistakes. I see all the victories. I see all the times when you give 150%. I see the times when you slack off. I see it all. And I can build a great frame of reference around your growth and where you're going. And as long as your growth and what you bring to the organization continues up into the left in this direction, even if it's a little bit wobbly like a roller coaster, but we're going that way, I'm good with that. And I'm like, the thing that you have to understand is that your relationships and your interactions with leaders as they go up and up the organization are fewer and there's a lot more space in between. So where I get to see it almost every day and or I'm aware of it through other leaders, the next level up maybe only gets to see it once a week or every other week. The next level up maybe gets to see it only once a quarter or once a year. The next level up maybe only meets you once or twice in your entire career. So what you have to understand is that time and that interaction is critical. It's important. Those are things that you want to do. I'm not asking you to fake it. I'm not asking you to be somebody that you're not. But when you have those opportunities to engage with people that you don't see that often, and maybe it's just a peer from another store or another part of the organization. Maybe it's just another leader that but you don't see that often. When you have those opportunities, you should really be showing up as the person that you want to be, and you should really be talking about the things that are important to you and where you're trying to go, and not take those things lightly and not let those things be distractions or have conversations that don't have any relevance in what you're trying to aspire to be. So for me to overcome that specific type of a situation takes a lot of conversation, a lot of understanding, and a lot of providing perspective that will help them get to that point.
The only thing I have to add to that is that the conversation around tell me about the ups and downs, tell me about how do you think you're perceived. Those are questions that require a relationship to exist before you have the right to ask them and expect candor in a response. You can ask them whenever you want to, but you're not going to be able to rely on the answers unless you put the time in to create a relationship between you and that person first. Otherwise, they're just going to tell you what they think you want to hear, or they're going to walk on eggshells to not admit something that they think might derail them in the future.
Yeah, spot on. Absolutely. All right, April has another question, and it's going to cover half the screen. Chris, you got cut out. Chris, hold on. Let me read the question. I'll push you back on.
Don't worry.
She says, how do you explain the pitfalls of intricate processes to leadership when they are not in the day-to-day? I find it challenging to give my CFO a less than 5-minute summary of my pain points when he doesn't understand the mechanics and nuances of our billing system that cripple me and my staff from being able to do our jobs. What do you think?
So I just want to frame that question back to her real quickly, and then hopefully she can reply with a yes or no. I want to make sure that I'm hearing it right. Basically, what she's saying is that the leader can't empathize with her because the leader hasn't walked in her shoes. So they weren't promoted from her role to the leadership role. They came into that role, and they don't know what it's like to walk the day-to-day of her role. So it's real hard to explain it. It's real hard to complain about it when you feel like it's falling on deaf ears.
Dude, I'm going to pull a Roy Montero and say, oh, there's an episode for that. Because Roy would say, oh, there's a selfie quote for that. I'm saying, oh, there's an episode for that. We actually talked about managing up and talking with leaders who are disconnected from the work. And the fact that, yes, and I believe, and she said, yes, correct. That's exactly what April said. So that is the frame of the question. So let's go.
You know what? I think...
Okay. Go ahead, Christian.
That happens a lot, actually. And what I always tell people, and what I personally do, is you have to find out what affects them directly, and start with a question, a challenging question. So if it's a CFO, you start with a financial question. You know, where all of a sudden you have his attention, and then you give the solution in a short term and what you need from him and how that's going to fix that problem that he has that he doesn't know he has. So if it's financial, something real basic, do you enjoy losing $100,000 a year? Well, of course I don't. All right, well, here's what I have for you. I need this. It's going to affect this. If you only have 5 minutes, typically when he talks to you, because a lot of times when they don't come, if they never walked in your shoes, and you're trying to explain the long version of what's going on and how it's affecting, and eventually get to the money part, they're not even listening. So when you just give a quick gut check off the bat and get their attention, and then give a solution and how you can make up for that, you probably have a lot better chance of getting that support that you need.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say maybe appeal to their sense of wanting to contribute a knowledge. So instead of approaching it from a standpoint of complaining about the intricacies or the pitfalls of the processes, instead say, I'm having difficulty with this. Can you show me a better way? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times leaders will, I know if a person asks me to show them a better way, there's a natural part of me that wants to show them a better way. I may not be able to, but I want to, it becomes a challenge. I want to tackle that for them. So what you're basically saying is, I would like for you to spend a few minutes with me to look at this and cast fresh eyes on it. I don't know very many leaders who will say no to that. No, I don't have the time for you to tell you. You have to figure this out on your own. So if you're saying I need help with something, I need you to help me do this. What you're saying is you're leaving the door open to, I may be wrong. Maybe there's nothing wrong with the intricate processes, and these pitfalls are because I'm doing it wrong. In your heart of hearts, that's probably not the case. Maybe there's a real problem with the system. But to put them in the situation where you've categorized it that way, what you're saying is, in my mind, this is a bad system, and now I want to change it. What you want to say to them is, I'm having trouble navigating this system. Can you show me a better way to do it? And then if they fall into the same thing that you're in, which is they're not able to find a better way to navigate it, and they get frustrated with it too, now they're more able to walk in your shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that April popped up there, and she said he's a bottom line kind of guy. right? In these situations, you need to speak their language. You need to meet people where they're at, and that's really the only, in my opinion, it's one of the only ways to get the actual work done. Right? She's saying, so basically turn it around and ask the person for the solution. Yes. However, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say however, but right. And if they don't know like the solution, because that's what you could run into many times, is that they don't know the nuances, they don't know the systems, they don't know the processes. So if you go to them and say, and if you know that they don't know, and you say like, well, how would you do this? Then it's a really awkward conversation because they can't give you the details or the tactics of what needs to get done. But if they're a bottom line kind of person, then everything that you reference and everything that you ask for and how you explain things should tie to the bottom line, right? Because that's the language that he speaks. And so that's what you need to talk about. Well, hey, this is what we're currently working on, but by accelerating this process or this deadline, that's going to cost our bottom line. Mm-hmm. Right. And now I'm talking to you in exactly the language that you want to hear, because that's exactly what that person cares about. So that's what I've learned over time, is understanding how you manage up and understanding the priorities of your boss or your boss's boss are extremely important to getting any type of work done. You've got to know that, and you have to speak in their language. And that is a competency in regards to managing up and figuring those types of things out. And it also shows that what's important to them is important to you. And so in those conversations, when it is those 5 minutes, or it is those types of things where, you don't have a lot of time, but you want to be able to provide them with some perspective or some insight on what's going on, starting off those conversations with what's important to them gets their attention very quickly. Hey, before I get started with what's going on with this project, I wanted to let you know that, what the email that you sent or the thing that we discussed, or I know that the bottom line is the most important thing here. So that's the lens that I use to kind of work through some of this process. And then here's some of the things that we're seeing. Here's some of the opportunities, the pitfalls, and the hurdles that are currently impacting our bottom line that I'm trying to eliminate, or I am eliminating, or I'm working to eliminate. And I could use your help with that. Those are different approaches and ways that you could talk to somebody about what's important to them to hopefully get what you're trying to get done. All right, let's see here. We've got one more. Boom. Debbie asks, do you find value in learning the personality types of your employees to help with how to lead them?
Does she mean that from like a Myers-Briggs personality type, or just in general? Like, oh, this person's a happy person, and this person is the class clown, and this, is it from like a general? That makes a big difference.
I'm going to default to the general. I'm going to default to just personality types in general. Let's start there. And if she pops on and she wants specifics, then we'll have that conversation too.
I think it's important to know what your people want, short-term and long-term, so that you can help them get it. And a lot of times the personality types that you see are covers for who they really are. They don't feel comfortable bringing their real self to work, so they bring this fake version to work. So it goes back to the problem employee, the lost cause employee. Well, are they a lost cause, or has the environment led them to believe that they can't win here, so they're kind of acting the role? There are people who hide their pain in their comedy. They're the class clown of the team. Oftentimes will be a person who is struggling with things, and that's how they find comfort, is to make a joke out of everything. So is that really their personality, or is it something else? And so the first thing I would do is I would figure out that I would make sure I have the environment in place that allowed their real personality to come out, and not jump to conclusions that I know what that is simply by watching them say something. So that's the first thing. But yes, if I know it's the real them, yeah, of course I would. I think it would be great to know what their personality is, because you have to know, everybody wants to be led differently, and you have to know where the line is for certain people. There are things that I can say to some people that I can't say to others. Not because we have a different relationship, but because they are a different person. And some things are harder for some people to hear than others. Some people don't want to hear certain things a certain way, and some people like having things framed a certain way. And a person's personality type can glean a lot into that.
Cool. Mr. Christian, any thoughts on that?
I think there's a lot of value in learning people's personality. Once you get to know them, like Chris says, after a while, knowing what they enjoy and whatnot, because once you can connect and relate to them, it's much easier to get through to them. You're speaking their language, so when you find out about their hobbies or whatever it is, you can relate your message to something that they really are passionate about. So I think by learning your employees and your team, it definitely helps out in an authentic way over a period of time, like Chris says.
I was reading the comments and she said she meant Myers-Briggs.
Oh, Myers-Briggs. All right. Well,
yeah. Yeah. So,
yeah.
There's an episode for that too. The more I do this work, the less value I place in a lot of these assessments, not because they're wrong, but because a lot of leaders have a tendency to use them wrong when they get the information. So if you know that the results of the Myers-Briggs or StrengthsFinder or Standout or DISC or any one of those things that you can do to figure out, try to find out more about your employees. If you don't start looking for behavior that validates those things in order to say, yes, I was right. If you know that you're confident you won't do that, then yeah, sure. I think there's value in knowing certain things about your people. I think there's value in them knowing it more about themselves than there is in you knowing it about them. But yeah, I've seen too many leaders label their people with these things and it hurts them in terms of their chances for promotion or different roles. I was told once, when I was in my early 20s that because competition was not in my top 5 StrengthsFinder, that I wasn't suitable for a management role. It's like, wait, that was your deciding factor? Was an online, exam I took, a year and a half earlier? And that's ridiculous. That you don't want to pigeonhole people like that on the basis of a test or a type or an exam. So I don't know a lot of people. I know some leaders who do it very well. Typically, they're the ones that expose themselves to a lot of different ones, and they've seen how people don't actually fit the type that they've been told they are. And once they get that light bulb moment, then they start taking it with a grain of salt, and they use it to help people get to know where their strengths are, where they're the best fit in the company, or whether they're not a fit for the company. But no, in a general standpoint, I don't think it should change your leadership style for them to know where their score was on something.
It takes a very strong leader to not be affected by the results of what they read. And I'm not a big fan of those because of that. Because there's so many poor leaders out there that they just screw it all up.
Especially if they're the leader that said, we should all do this. Then they're really bought into it.
It must have been a great salesman that sold it.
Right.
No, and yeah, there was a couple of questions in the thread around personality types and whatnot. I can share for myself. Self-awareness is key to everything, in my opinion. Knowing, not just what you think of yourself, but who you actually are. There's that idea of like wearing a mask and trying to put on this persona of who you actually are. And that's tiring, that's exhausting. And while it can work maybe in the short term to fool people, in the long term, you can't maintain it. So you've got to be who you are. What I appreciate in Myers-Briggs and some of the other assessments is if it can give me a peek into the window, or if it can provide me with verbiage or understanding, or help me know that there are other people out there that are programmed the same way that I'm programmed, and things that I know that I can leverage to win, or things that I know I need to avoid or be very conscious of that I can fall into these traps, then I find a lot of value in them. But and you have to have
I saw that correction.
You saw that, right? You have to the net friending way, right? It runs in our blood now. check out netfriending.com. Everybody, if you're watching now and been watching, netfriending.com and netfriending on Facebook. Check out the movement. You'll be a better version of yourself, I promise. You've got to be in a place from a self-awareness standpoint that you can accept that, because a lot of people will read those things and they'll only take the things that they go like, oh, like that's exactly, who I am and what I believe. They'll throw away the things.
If it becomes an astrological reading, then you failed already.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. If you read 2 sentences, yep, I agree. I'm powerful and I'm going to own this week. Sentence number 3, don't be lazy. Well, that's not me anyway, so I'm not going to be lazy.
What's up with these questions?
Right.
So, all right.
It goes back to the old saying that a little knowledge is dangerous. Sometimes a little bit of knowledge is more dangerous than no knowledge. Mm-hmm. So you have to make sure that these exams or these tests or these inventories and surveys, that the right coaching goes along with it. When I did StrengthsFinder at Best Buy, they did it for all 100,000+ people, but only managers and above got to have the 1-hour coaching session online with the Gallup representative that told them how to do it. And when I took the exam, I was not a manager. And when I got promoted to be a manager, they offered it to me. And I went from thinking it was kind of gimmicky to really valuing it, but it had nothing to do with the exam. It had to do with them telling me how I can integrate this into my life and what it should and what it shouldn't be used for. So that was incredibly valuable to me. In the absence of that, there are a lot of people who are filling in the gaps, trying to answer these questions without the proper knowledge. And I think it ends up hurting their leadership more than helping it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I put up a quote from Maya Angelou that I know Roy says quite often on NetFriending. And thank you, Jeremy, for popping this up there. When people show you who they are, believe them. Yeah, I love that quote. And I borrow a version of that when I interview people, because I ask them a question and then I believe their answer. And sometimes, as we all know, you get some wild answers, and you do everything you can to spin. Maybe that's not what they thought. Maybe that's not what they mean. Maybe that's not. And you start making excuses for them. But at the end of the day, believe what they say and take that as fact and take that as wholesale. Because if and this is what a good mentor and friend of mine says all the time. If you're interviewing somebody for a role, and you would make the assumption that this is the best version of themselves, they are showing up as the best version of who they are because they're trying to get a job. Yep. And if you see a red flag or something pops up, and this is supposed to be the best version of them, wait till you hire them, right? Right. So I'm waiting. Alan, Alan made a comment that he had a question, but then he didn't make another comment yet. So Alan, you got about 20 seconds to get your question in so we can get it answered for you. But I'll run through a couple of comments here. Dale says some are natural born leaders. Roy really loved the fact that I course corrected myself. Roy felt that you had a great point, Chris, a minute ago in your comments. April says, when people show you their buttons, press them. Then you will know who they really are. And Roy says, the way a person does one thing is the way they do everything. All right. That was enough time. We have the final question of the evening. And that is from Alan, and it's another cover your face question. So bye-bye, Chris, for a second.
No worries.
I'll swap it around. There we go. Now Hey, there's everybody. All right. Alan says, being who you are is truly important. Agreed. Do you feel a need to examine who you are before taking on a leadership role? And how do you go about finding out if you can truly be a good fit for something? Or do you just leap at the chance and adjust on the fly?
We just talked about that. That was like 2 episodes ago.
There's an episode for that.
Alan, do you even listen? No, okay.
Yeah. Alan, hackingyourleadership.com. Yes, great question, and one that we've discussed. So, Christian, you want to take the lead on this one since we just had an episode about this? And I will message Alan the link to the episode.
It's the C in our culture acronym.
That is correct. Consider yourself. That's right. Hey, can I throw this out there real quick? Alan, you should know this because in Tallahassee, I taught this acronym to you the same day that I informed you that you got a bonus as a supervisor. Never forget.
I'm shocked you remember that.
I remember everything. All right, Christian, what do you think here?
Yeah, you know what? For me, should you examine yourself? Depends what he means by that. Because too many people over-examine themselves and never go for it. They never feel like they're ready for that next role and that next position. So I feel that, if you have a proven track record and things are lined up, then you just need to go for it. So examining yourself could be you try to talk yourself out of it, or lack of confidence, or you're always going to have that voice that's going to tell you you're not the right guy, you're not qualified, you don't have experience. And quite frankly, that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my 3 years being on my own, is that you write your own rules. If I was to rely on was I ready to take on a huge account at a business that I've never done before, I would have never gotten that account. So I think it's when the opportunity arises, you have to just go for it. And if you weren't ready, then it's you're gonna learn a lot, and that's okay. But examining yourself to a point, it's okay. But overthinking it, I would say, is where I would just not do it and go for it, because there's always a slight bit of fear and excitement that goes when there's a big opportunity or a big challenge ahead of you. It's always going to be there. So I would just go. I would go. I'm the guy that says just go for it. What's the worst that could happen, right? If the worst that could happen is you're back where you were, then that wasn't so bad, So that's my answer to that.
Cool.
I think Alan, you need to take an inventory of the things that drive you, the things you're passionate about, the things you're good at, and the things you're bad at. Because I can think of, if I made a list of like the 5 best leaders I know, it doesn't mean that they're all equally good at every aspect of leadership. They all have the things that they really, that's their forte. And then there are things that they struggle with, either because they're just not passionate about it, or because it's just not in their DNA. They just don't know how to do certain things, and they can do better than average at it, but they're not fantastic at it. So you need to know what you can add to this team, what strengths you have that you could bring to this team. And then you need to figure out what the team needs, and you need to figure out what they don't need. And if your strengths line up with what is lacking on the team, then I think it'd be a good fit. If they don't line up, if you have to kind of make the round peg fit into the square hole, so to speak, and you think, well, I'm a generally good leader, the things that I'm really good at are things that this team's kind of already good at. The things they need are things that, I don't really love doing, but hey, you know what? I'm a great leader, and I'm more than willing to take on the role. Know that you are not setting yourself up for, the best levels of success. I'm not saying you can't do it, just that you may find yourself not being passionate about the job versus a role where you can do what you were born to do every day. The roles that you can really bring who you are and something that you are good at, and the team needs it. That's that kind of that Venn diagram of where you see the what I'm good at, what I can get paid for, and what society needs, and then there's that middle point in there with that's just the love if you can make all those 3 things meet.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you guys. I want to call out visionclaritysupport.com. The book drops, I think, in the next 36 minutes, if I understand Amazon correctly, at midnight Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. Pacific. Hacking Your Leadership ebook drops tonight, tomorrow morning. Check it out. Vision Clarity Support if you want some links to it or some more information on the book. I am super excited, and I'm so happy to get this bucket list item checked off. And I just wanted to come on and thank everybody for the support of that. Chris and Christian, thank you guys for popping in the seat tonight and having some fun and talking some leadership and enjoying this conversation. I think there'll be more to come in the future here because I'm really enjoying this platform and the ability for doing what we just did, which is engaging our audience, having them pop in, ask questions, talk in real time. And I mean, the cool part was the 145 comments, 48 reactions. There were times of the show we had 20 something viewers, and people were giving each other kudos and answering their questions and giving opinions. And that's really what it's all about when it comes to hacking your leadership and what we're trying to provide. And Christian does similar work with his Ego Sales Consulting, is just trying to add value and help people with their journeys and achieve the things they want to achieve. So again, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Chris, any final thoughts before we go?
Listen to the podcast. The episodes are around 20 minutes each, and the questions that we're answering right now, they're identical. So go through it. I'm not saying listen to all 68 episodes, but scroll through search for it on iTunes or on Podbean, and go through and look for some of the titles are pretty descriptive. So look for some of the titles that kind of pique your interest a little bit and say, oh, okay, that's something I could learn a little bit more about. It's a 20-minute commitment, and it's free.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Christian, any parting words? Any plugs?
Yeah. I just want to say, man, super proud of you, Lorenzo. I've seen you work through a lot to get this book done, and the frustrations and I'm just excited and honored that I was able to see it and experience it. And to all the listeners, I encourage everybody to buy not one but a few copies so that we can influence other people's lives, and you won't be disappointed. So I'm super thankful, and thank you for having me. And I look forward to doing this again. Next time we'll have Chris with a shirt.
Yeah, with a Life of Lozo shirt. Come on, man.
Yeah. You keep framing that like it's my responsibility to make that happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you one. I got the big sexies back in stock. I'm going to send you a big sexy shirt. Good. Awesome. Hey, thank you.
If I don't get one, next time I'm going to wear this week mop the floors, next week the fries.
You'll have one.
That one next time.
We're going to make one happen.
Just as good.
Whatever you get, you have to wear, though.
Well, thank you, everybody that's been on. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Dale. Thank you, April. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. Who else is on here in the thread? Jeremy and Alba and Debbie and Tyler and Teresa. Everybody that's still been watching as we've gone in about 2.5 hours now. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will do this more often. We will get some schedules done. You guys rock. We made it to 150 comments on the show. Thank you so much. HackingYourLeadership.com, VisionClaritySupport.com, ExegoSales.com, and Stark Engagement Consulting.com. Yeah.
Sure.
This is StarkEngagement.com.
It's StarkEngagement.com, but it doesn't. It's just my name and phone number on it. So
it's easy. Yep. So check it out. All right, you guys have a good one. Buy the book. I appreciate y'all. Peace.
Peace.
The Life of Lozo podcast is brought to you by Stay Tuned Studios, SDS Podcast, The Taylor Shop Inc., 03 Productions, The Beat Brigade, Rhyme Designs Clothing, Ronz Guitars, The Music Experience, Custom Shirts and More, Local Goods Market, The Art of Kyle Willis, The Josh Saman MMA Foundation, and of course, Jack's Nutrition. Thank you guys for listening to this 2-part series. If you haven't had a chance yet, check out VisionClaritySupport.com for more info on my leadership book, A Leadership Crash Course on the 3 Pillars of Success by me, Lorenzo Flores. Thanks y'all for the support. I appreciate y'all. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Peace.